Making barbecue is a labor of love, and that means at some point it's going to break your heart. What you're about to watch is me ruining a brisket. I considered not sharing this footage with you, but I want you to see it. I'm going to point out my mistakes along the way so that hopefully you can learn from my mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes. Let's go. Well, here we are. It is 3:18 on a Saturday morning, and there are only two reasons to be up that early. Number one is to go to Vegas, which sadly we are not, and that other reason is to start making barbecue. That we are doing. Welcome back to the Midlife Ride. Today we are doing brisket, and we're doing it Texas style. The first time I cooked a brisket, it was pretty early on after buying the Traeger, which was, maybe 3 to 4 years ago? Mm-hmm. And back then, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm pretty sure, I am 99.9% sure, that we only made the flat part of the brisket on that first cook. I know for a fact I used like 3 different rubs on it. I also know for a fact I did not trim any fat from it. I mean, it's just, you just don't know until you start doing and start getting into it. So that's what we're doing today. We are cooking a whole packer brisket, prime from Costco, and we're going to keep it really simple, Texas style, just rubbed with half kosher salt and half coarse black pepper. Rub's done. But first we're going to start trimming it. We already have the grill going outside. It's coming up to temperature at 275. And that was possible mistake number 1, cooking at 275 instead of 250. I went back and forth all week long, but I think that was the wrong choice. You can watch all the videos, you can read all the books, and I have, but it really comes down to knowing what you're cooking and knowing your grill. And that's what we're going to cook at for the duration of the cook. We're using oak pellets, and we also have our water pan in there already. Like I mentioned, we found this brisket at Costco, and it's a USDA prime brisket. We got this for $47.78, and I think that's one of the intimidating things about brisket, at least for me anyway. You spend so much money on a cut of meat, and you only have one shot to get it right. This is my first whole packer brisket to smoke, so we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I think that's a pretty decent price. It certainly wasn't the largest brisket they had, but it was the prettiest. The fat looks amazing. As far as the way it's shaped, this one is really good. The other ones they had, even though they were bigger, the points were huge. I mean, they were like this compared to the flats, which were paper thin. So I went with this one, and we're gonna cut it open now and start trimming. Tell you another thing, we just got this boning knife off of Amazon, and if you do something like that, please note these things are super sharp. This is my first time using it, and I got it specifically to trim brisket. You know, unfortunately, these things are priced by the pound. Also, unfortunately, you're going to be trimming a lot of fat off this, and we're going to take the fat side part down to about 1/4 of an inch, and we're just going to start that process. And it's always better to trim a brisket when it's cold rather than when it's warm. I could also see some parts that have turned brown on the brisket. Anything we see like that on the edges, we are going to trim off. But if you can see this part right here, see where it's already starting to turn brown? I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off so we're exposing red meat right there. And that's starting to look pretty good, I think. And you can really trim on this as long as you want to. But I think we may flip it back over and check it out before we actually put it on the grill. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that part. I think that's looking pretty good. Not too bad for a first time, I think. So let's check out the other side. And again, we have a lot of browning already going on right here. So we're going to just go ahead and trim that off. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop there. I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. Yeah. I think it's time to rub it now. And like I said, we're just going to stick with really simple Central Texas style today with salt and black pepper. Oh yeah, this is not cinnamon. This is just an empty container that we saved specifically for stuff like this. So we're just going to get a nice layer. Okay, and that is it. We are going to let this sit for just a little bit longer to come up to room temperature. You know, you wouldn't want to do that with something like pork or with chicken, but with beef, you can. And we're going to go fat side up. I would show you when we get out there, and we'll still try to, but like I said, it's now 4:07 in the morning and still really dark. So, yeah. We'll see you outside here in a minute. Okay, so we have our oak pellets going. We are up to temperature at 275. We had our water pan in the grill already. When I put the brisket on the grill, I've decided to put the point toward the pellet box so that the flat is facing the smokestack. I feel like there's more heat that comes out from the smokestack, and you know, with the flat being smaller than the point, I want that exposed to less heat. That is my theory. We will see if it works. And we're going to say goodbye to it for about 3 hours, because if you're looking, you ain't cooking. We're just going to let it go for 3 hours without opening the lid. We're going to come back out and we're going to spritz it at that point with some apple cider vinegar and water just to prevent the bark from drying out. And hopefully at that point we'll start to have some color on that brisket. So for now, the question is, do we make coffee already? Or do we not make coffee already? Or do we just go back to bed for a little bit? You know what? Just tell us in the comments below what you would do. Welcome to daylight. First of all, it's really freaking cold out here for a May day. But we are about 3 hours into our cook. We're going to open the lid for the first time to check on the color of the brisket and probably spray it with a combination of apple cider vinegar and water. If you're wondering what my measurement is, there really isn't one. It's probably 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water. It really doesn't matter. We've been going at 275, and the reason I decided on that temperature is my Traeger tends to run cleaner at 275 as opposed to 250. I didn't want a bunch of that dirty smoke to affect the brisket, and that's why I decided to go with 275. So let's open up the lid real quick and check out what we have. And that is looking pretty good. Just gonna hit it with a little bit of apple cider vinegar and water. Stop the tape. I made another huge mistake right here. I should have checked the temperature at the 3-hour mark, and I didn't. I was basing it on color, and the video really doesn't do it justice right here. It looks a lot more uniform on video than it did in real life. And I can't even explain that little white bubble that's right in the middle of the brisket right there. I should have checked the temperature. I mean, the bark is really important, don't get me wrong, but the bark can lie. The internal temperature can't. And I suspect, because it was cooking so fast, that I should have wrapped somewhere around the 4-hour mark. But let's keep going. So it's about 2 hours later now, which means we're about 5 hours into our cook, and we're going to check the brisket. But one other thing you need to make sure you check, even though these electric pellet grills are kind of set it and forget it, you have to remember to check your pellets on occasion. So since we're 5 hours in, I mean, you can see, like I had the hopper filled up with pellets when we first started this morning. That is way down. So we are going to refill our pellets before we check our meat. Okay, so we have our hopper refilled, and now we're going to open up the lid and see how it looks. Now, the last time we came out, which was 2 hours ago, I expected the bark to be better formed than what it was. So hopefully it's better formed now. Oh yeah, it's starting to look good. But I am still going to spray it. Or spritz it. Even though that looks a lot better than it did before, instead of letting it go for 2 hours, this time I'm going to check it after another hour because I want to wrap it based on color. I don't want the bark to get too dark because I know it'll finish when we wrap it in the butcher paper. So instead of 2 hour increments now, I'm going to check every hour. So we will see you in an hour. And yet another mistake, because I was so determined to wrap based on color. Once again, I did not check the internal temperature at the 5 hour mark. I should have, because I can tell you if it wasn't time to wrap at the 3 or 4 hour mark with as fast as it was cooking, it was definitely time to wrap at the 5 hour mark. As you can see, I did not. We are about 8 hours into our cook, and we're going to check and see what it looks like right now. That has a really nice mahogany color to it. I think we'll go ahead and pull that off and wrap it in butcher paper for the remainder of the cook. Put this back on for maybe another hour. We'll just check it every hour to make sure it's done. Let's face it, at this point, it was probably already done. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just so fixated on the bark and how it looked. When it comes right down to it, I am not an expert at smoking brisket on the Traeger. I mean, this was a first, and man, was it a painful one. Okay, we let the brisket rest for an hour. And even though this got done a lot faster than I thought it would, now we're gonna find out what we have here. I can tell you right now, I think this is overdone. I think it's overcooked. And I think it's going to be awful. It is way overcooked. And that's it. This is way overcooked. I don't know why it cooked so fast. But there you go. Not everything comes out perfect on the grill, and I don't know what else to say. What we did end up with is kind of this beef spaghetti. which tastes a lot like pot roast. So we'll still, even though it's not brisket you would get in a restaurant, it's very much like pot roast. So that's the way we'll eat it. We're certainly not going to throw it away. It's not bad, but I would not serve this to anyone, to be quite frank with you. So we did get lucky. Like, we didn't have to throw away the entire brisket. The bark was awful, but we were able to salvage the inside of it, both from the flat and from the point. We just took it and chopped it up, simmered it in some barbecue sauce. I would compare it to barbecue you would get from a fast food place. It wasn't bad, served with sides, but it was not the brisket you would and should get from a really good barbecue place or from a person who knows what they're doing with barbecue. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this fail. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Hit the thumbs down button if you didn't like it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that little notification bell so that you know every time we release a new video. And hey, it's just further proof that barbecue is a lifelong learning process. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. That's just the way it goes. But we will see you on the next episode of The Midlife Ride.